Sent to a third party, it says.
Oh, there we are. Okay, I can shut this off. All right, we're live. All right,
Did.
welcome everybody to a new month of the Gen X Book Club. I'm Paul, and along with me so far is Suzanne. Hey, Suzanne.
Mm.
And then Dell will be joining us a little bit later, hopefully. Mr. Taxman is stuck working.
Trust. We'll get to join the conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So how you doing? You doing good? Yeah.
I'm pretty good, moving things along. Getting into, what's going to be spring soon. I don't know if the weather's quite cooperating, but
No. Yeah, I know we got like to say, yeah, it's been super cold here, even though it's April. The Boston Marathon's going to be coming up soon. I usually go to that.
oh yeah. So when is that?
Um, it's the 21st this year. It's like the day after Easter.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So
Okay,
yeah, you
cool.
never know. Sometimes it's really nice out and sometimes it's nasty out. So yeah, at this time of year up in New England it can be kind of crazy.
The
So
coin toss.
yeah, yeah. One of the exciting things about it. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that this month. And but for last month we covered The Most Beautiful by Mayte Garcia. Yeah, so far, I have to say that I really loved it. And she was married to Prince, and I had no idea. I didn't know who she was like before.
Yeah, I didn't even realize he was married. He was kind of
I
low key
mean,
about the whole thing, honestly.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So that was interesting. She
Well,
has like an incredible story, and because she was a dancer, and she was part of his new power generation, and one of the common threads I've been finding with all these celebrity memoirs is that they didn't, become successful by accident. Every one of them has put in a ton of work, to get where they were. So,
absolutely, absolutely. I've noticed that too, and not just put in a lot of work, but since they were like children,
mm,
like most of the things that we've been reading, these people have been working in entertainment since they were kids.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And I mean, I wasn't working and I wasn't out there, doing dance shows when I was 8 years old for people. So,
yeah, yeah,
but, it just goes to show it gets you somewhere,
yeah.
to be
Yep.
dedicated.
hmm Yeah, it was, Jennifer Grey came from, the show business family, and then of course we had
Hmm.
Diane Franklin on, and she was like a child when she was, going into commercials and everything from, very
Hmm.
young age and everything. And
Yeah, and the Van Halen brothers who were
right.
playing out with their father when they were 11-year-olds.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. They didn't have, yeah, none of them seemed to have like a life when they were kids. They didn't have life as, normal kids, but that's how
yeah,
they
they
reached
just
the heights
became
that they
the
did.
family business.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, I think the book was really well written too. The right off the beginning, she starts off when she got the news about Prince dying. So yeah, I still remember where I was. And I actually just posted an episode recently, the Throwback Thursday, one of our first episodes. It was actually episode 2 of Return of the 80s. And
Wow.
because our first episode was Journey, and then our second one was going to be Fast Times at Ridgemont High, and then that week was when Prince died. So then we scrambled and we put together
Wow. Yeah.
Prince. So yes, I was in 2016, April.
Yeah, that was a big year. I remember
Yeah,
Bowie died not too long before that.
yeah, yeah. And was that Glenn Fry too? I think.
Yeah, that's right. They were all together. Yeah, that was rough.
Yeah.
2016 was rough.
Yeah, yeah. And that was all at the beginning of the year.
Mm,
Yeah.
it's
So that
true.
was a lot of craziness, but that kind of brought us back there. It's kind of like now when you read books that I've read some where they take place at the beginning of COVID, and then you kind of like reliving that. It's like, I don't want to
Yeah.
go there.
I know, but a lot of people became writers during COVID, because like there was
Yeah,
nothing for anybody to do. So
right.
everybody's getting all introspective and they just started doing memoirs and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So we got a lot of books out there now that
Yeah.
bring
But
it back to COVID. Yeah, and it's true. Who wants to revisit certain things? I don't know. But it wasn't just about him. I mean, it was her story.
right.
It wasn't just here were my adventures when I was married to Prince. Like you said, she was working hard her whole life too. And
Yeah.
they just have they intersected. And she had a lot to say about what I loved was just kind of the mystical way that she describes her life. And he was really into that whole aesthetic also, that everything is destined and meant to be, and it's in God's hands, and we've been brought together by faith, and we've been together for years we've been reincarnated for and met each other in other lives, and just had all these very uh, devout kind of um, dedications to this mystic world that they felt that they were living in. And it's not that it suddenly made me a convert. I kind of posted about this online, but it felt good to read it and listen to someone who is kind of that faithful and that dedicated to like this mystical Zen type existence that they had in their heads and that they lived in. So it was nice to pick up the book and like be in that little cloud that they
Right. Yeah.
created for themselves. It was cool.
Yeah. And she fit right in with that because that was kind of how she was. Yeah. So definitely, there was definitely something to that they were meant to.
Right. But consider she was 16 when she met him.
Right. Yeah.
And yeah, for people who haven't read the book, she was a child belly dancer and she was making a ton of money
Yeah.
playing it,
Yeah.
and her parents were bringing her places and managing her, etc. And they went to a couple Prince concerts and actually like slipped his Rhodey a video of her belly dancing, and she was just a teenager at the time, and so that's how she got hooked up with him, because he said, oh, come on in, talk to me about your career. And but consider, if you start out with somebody as a 16-year-old, you're really impressionable, so who knows if she would have had that same kind of outlook if she wasn't with him since she was such a young
Back
girl,
in,
you know?
that's a good point. Yeah, definitely. Well, I mean, just that belly dancer environment too. And
That's true.
did they go to Egypt? They were abroad.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. She was dancing in different countries and such, and
Hmm.
was calling herself a princess, the mystical princess, somebody, I don't know. I guess
Yeah.
Princess Mayte. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah, yeah.
Right. So I guess she was kind of going down that road. It's true.
Yeah. I do love that she brought up that she was on that show That's Incredible. So
Hmm.
yeah, I watched that clip. Yeah. So I
Did you
used to
watch
watch
it? I
that.
didn't get a chance to watch it. I wanted it to. I wanted to. I probably still will. But
Yeah.
I think I saw just like a still of her as a kid in the belly dancing outfit. So,
Yeah.
an
Yeah,
interesting
yeah, she did
choice.
that. She did that trick where she was laying down and she had a quarter on her stomach, and then she was like flipping it on her stomach, like making it roll, going, topping over and stuff on her stomach. So yeah,
Wow.
she was like a little kid. I forgot how old she was. She was like really young, like 4 or 5 or something like that. Yeah, she was a small child.
Yeah. Wow. That's a lot of attention for a kid that young.
Yeah, yeah. So that was pretty cool. And when she was born, her legs were like severely inverted, and so she had casts on her legs, as soon as she was born to straighten them out. So it's kind of funny how she had the leg problem being born, and then she ends up being a dancer. So
Right, right. And ironically, then she ended up making her living as a dancer.
yeah.
It just goes to show, though, that, you can conquer things and do the things you want to do in life. There's hope, you know, there's hope, even if you have a lot, you're truly disadvantaged. So,
hmm Yeah. And I remember she did have to be pushed a little bit. I think the first time she was going to go on stage with her mother, and then she got stage fright, so she didn't even.
oh, yeah. And her mother got all upset with her.
Yeah, yeah. But that was the last time that happened, and then that she just like
Yeah,
fell in love with it. Yeah. Um. Yeah. So it really dove into her story. It kind of reminded me, of Alex Van Halen's book, where it's his story, but a lot of it focused on his brother that's no longer with us. It's kind of the
that's
same
true.
kind of a vibe. It's her story, but it's so entwined with Prince. So
Yeah,
uh,
absolutely.
yeah. Um. Yeah, they met, and then and then her mother kind of like got the tape to him, just a pushy mom, but she had
Yeah.
everything.
But, maybe if we all had more pushy mothers, we'd have
Yeah.
achieved things younger. Who knows?
Yeah. And then they just really had a strong connect. They'd be talking on the phone and stuff,
I know. See now, and you have to picture that with this huge celebrity just calling up a teenager to
yeah.
talking to her for hours, when he's in a completely different city and just doing that day after day. That's that's pretty unique, especially since because the first thing you think is that, oh, he's gonna take advantage of her. This is not a good situation. But he seemed to let her. I was surprised, and I'm hoping this isn't just the way that she couched this because she's, wanted to look good in the book. But he did not, despite the fact that, he has this reputation with all these women, and his show is very sexually charged, and, he's just, his whole shtick is, he's got he's licking his fingers and sticking his tongue out and being lewd. But meanwhile, he's got this 16-year-old girl that he has now dancing on stage with him. And he allowed her, even though they were very close, allowed her, according to the book, to go on her way there on the stage and like keep a certain amount of her innocence, even though, you could tell that they were really attracted to each other.
Yeah.
He held off until she was like a 20-year-old to really, make a move, I guess you would say, which I was just kind of shocked that something like that happened in the real world, you know?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I was like starting to get Michael Jackson vibes there. I'm like, no, 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 because
I
she
know. Like, is he
blew in his
grooming
hotel.
her? I mean, this is pretty bad. But
Mhm.
according to her, that's not the way that it happened. So,
Yeah, yeah,
maybe good for him.
and the parents were fine with it, like so they kind of, you know, they approved of it. If anything, they encouraged it. So,
Yeah, it's true. I mean, that might be a kind of weird situation. That's probably why more parents aren't pushing their kids into celebrity,
yeah.
because how can you control that kind of thing?
Mhm.
And it seemed like Prince tried to make sure they were comfortable, that her parents were comfortable with what she was doing.
Mhm.
So, that's
Yeah,
kind of nice too. But
yeah.
if
I
it
guess
were, if, as a mom, I don't know that I would go for
all
that.
right. But she had been doing a belly dancer all those years since she was a kid, and being in the business. So I guess her mother knew that she could handle herself and everything. She's I don't
Well, yeah,
know,
I guess that's true. If you're taking your kid around the globe to dance in these, little
five days.
costumes and,
Mm,
yeah, shimmy around, then at that point maybe you've got your guidelines well established as far as what she can do and what she can't do,
right.
and it takes a lot of trust.
Hmm.
But it was kind of a remarkable life for a young person. Like I said, it wasn't just this wasn't just his story. This was a lot of her story too, and it was interesting.
Hmm.
She had an interesting youth.
Definitely. Yeah. I really enjoyed it. Yeah. Um, yeah, and then she talks about going to his hotel room and what do they call it? The foo something.
Yeah, it was like what she called it, the foo-foo
Yeah, yeah.
aesthetic or something like that.
That was interesting because every when you go traveling and you go in these hotels, they'd set it up so he was like at home. So that because sleep was important, he had to be comfortable and rested, so he could perform at the top of his game. So it was interesting how well they set up his rooms and stuff.
Yeah, it was almost like, the fairies would come and set
Right.
everything up and put chiffon on things and dim the lights and, paper the windows so that he could sleep during the day, like you're saying. But also, it seemed like she described various times where he would get up in the middle of the night and be, on his piano and writing. So I guess if you're away in somebody else's, you know, hotel room and you don't have control over that environment, then he's going to lose those moments where he might have been more creative. So on the surface, I always thought that was, that kind of thing was kind of like real diva, activity.
Right.
But when you're kind of listening to from the inside, like she described,
Yeah.
it didn't sound so crazy anymore. It sounded like, all right, well, this is my world and I'm taking it with me. Otherwise, I'm going to lose it. This is going to, screw me up, which I guess is true. How do you live like a normal person? I mean, not that that's particularly normal, but just like a creative genius,
Right.
not a normal person. But that's the environment that he needed in order to thrive. And how do you maintain that if you're going to 20 different cities in 6 months?
Right.
So he just made sure he had people running around and, completely transformed every place that he stayed.
Yeah.
So that doesn't seem so crazy anymore. It seems like, all right, that's what you need to live this crazy life.
Yeah. 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 Like I didn't know that he did that, but yeah, it doesn't surprise me. And if I knew about it at the time, yeah, I would have thought it was diva-ish or something. But that there was a purpose
Mhm.
to it, and he obviously was very creative. Wrote so much and everything, and um, yeah. Then I don't know if I forgot or if I didn't even know that he was with Carmen Electra at one point, because
I remember seeing them hanging around together or her being involved in his stuff, but I don't know that he always made it outright that this was the girlfriend of I mean, you had to kind of assume, but there were so many different girls that he was
somebody,
involved
yeah,
in.
yeah,
Like how could you really differentiate who was the girlfriend and who was the protege and,
mhm,
who was doing what when?
yeah.
But I do remember her briefly being involved with him, but her musical career didn't seem to go anywhere was the problem.
Mhm.
So next thing you knew, she was kind of I would say an actress. It's not like she's done any great roles, but she's been in movies and things that I recognize her from. So she was more like a, B movie type of hot girl celebrity.
Yeah. Yeah. What was she with Tommy Lee that she was with too afterwards, maybe?
What's that?
Is she a Tommy Lee girl too?
Was she? Maybe, yeah. I wasn't paying that much attention. I was more
Yeah.
of a new wave girl.
Yeah.
But I mean, everybody loved Prince. Everybody,
Right.
because you could dance to Prince.
Yeah.
He had a lot of really terrific dance songs. So everybody loved Prince.
Yeah.
But like I wasn't really following what Tommy Lee was doing. I probably know more about Tommy Lee now than I ever did at the time.
Uh-huh.
Because, he's been in, docudramas and things.
Right. Yeah. But yeah, Mayte did a little foreshadowing there because
Yeah,
with whoever that he'd have whoever was staying in Minneapolis was in with him, so that was who he was seeing. And then once
right.
they were like moved out, then once they were like out of there, then you knew that things weren't gonna last, and somebody else would move in. It was like a rotating door almost.
Kind of, yeah. She began to see that pattern. And
Mhm.
then when it was her that was off in a different country, I think it took a little longer for her to realize, oh yeah, now I'm the girl who's not in Minneapolis.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess when you're watching and you're the one coming up, maybe it's easier to kind of recognize that pattern because you're on the good end of it.
Yeah.
So watching the last girl take off. But I mean, he certainly did the career when it came to women. So
Yeah.
he certainly did.
Yeah, she had mentioned Diamond and Pearl was a diamond that he was with. Like they
Hmm.
um yeah, when you were in Minneapolis, you were the girl on the way in. When you left, you were the girl on the way out. Uh,
Right, right.
yeah. And
And she
then
was still the wife. She was still the wife, and she knew she was the girl on the way out. You
right.
know.
Yep. Yep. The it was cool seeing some behind the scenes with the performances and stuff. She mentioned that he would do a prayer before each performance. Like they would all get together. You would do a prayer for them,
Hmm.
the audience, and everything. So that was
Yeah, he was very religious
very
for such a wild guy. You know.
yeah, yeah,
Uh, strongly, and in fact, eventually I think that was part of what broke them up was that he then became a Jehovah Witness and started hanging around with a different kind of spiritual crowd, and she
yeah,
just couldn't buy into it,
yeah,
and that was like the end. You know, not that I mean there were other things too. Obviously, I'm sure we'll get to
right.
all that, but
Yeah. He had met. Oh, I forgot Larry Graham. I forgot who he was with. He was a musician too, and
mhm.
yeah, so he was in Jehovah's Witnesses, and then yeah, the Prince got into that as opposed to Scientology.
Yeah, all those culty religions that just
Yeah,
pull people away from their loved ones.
yeah,
Oy.
yeah, and she wasn't. Yeah, she didn't believe in that. She kind of felt uneasy about that when he started getting involved with that. Uh, but yeah, there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff. She had talked about his dispute with Warner Brothers and that he changed
Mhm.
the name to the symbol and everything.
Yeah, but once again, she made that sound very spiritual and like this mystical decision that was connected to him becoming a new person and moving on in his career. When I remember at the time hearing that that was a freaking contract dispute, that
Yeah,
he signed Prince Nelson or whatever he signed, and then once he couldn't get out of the contract, was like, all right, well, I'm not Prince Nelson anymore. I'm this other thing now. That contract's void.
yeah,
That's kind of the way I heard it
yeah. That's
back in
what
the
I
day.
heard too. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. But notice how with her, it was all like a deep, meaningful personal decision that he made that
yeah,
was relative to his growth as an artist. So I don't
yeah,
know, is that how the whole marriage was couched? It was just, like they made everything into this very spiritual, fated journey that they were on, when,
yeah,
well, I guess it all depends on how you look at it.
yeah, yeah. That's true. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was because he referred to the Bible when God would change their names. Um,
That's right.
yeah. So when the person changes, God changes their name. Like Abram turned to change to Abraham,
Yeah,
Sarah.
even as a kid, I used to wonder what did
Yeah,
he do that? Why? So it had to be Steve, it had to be Paul instead of Simon, or Simon instead of Paul. I don't know. The apostles got to change their names. I don't know. It was weird. Like, why is there some like rule where you was it foretold you have to match the prophecy, and the prophecy said Paul, not Simon? I don't know. I always thought that was funny, but yeah, it is funny that he said, "Well, if God can do it with the
right,
apostles, then I can decide your name is really supposed to be Arabia." But
right.
and she wouldn't go for that either. Notice she's the only one who
Yeah,
wouldn't
yeah,
change her name.
yeah. Uh, yeah, so what was that? That was in 94 when he was the yeah, changed it to the symbol. And then yeah, it's funny she even mentioned that she didn't call him Prince. She never called him Prince to begin with, so
Right.
it didn't make a difference to her that
I
he did
know, and it's weird. Maybe she just thought, I don't know that I want to go through my life calling somebody Prince.
that.
It's very. pretentious, despite the fact that that was actually his name. That's his
Right, yeah.
born name is Prince,
Right, yeah. Yeah.
ironically. But I'm wondering, what did she call him? She said she just called him like Hun or something, or
Yeah.
like you go through your marriage, you don't really use his name outright. So what do you call him?
Yeah, yeah. E
Mm,
Even in the book, she would call him like her husband, or she rarely
yeah.
used called him by his name in the book too. So yeah. Uh, one of the cool thing was too in the book. Did you read like the physical copy of it or on Kindle or something? You didn't listen to the audio, right?
Yeah. No, I
Yeah.
didn't. I didn't listen. I usually try to actually read words
Yeah.
on the page
But
or the screen.
right on the screen, yeah, because it had his letters that he wrote to her, and whenever it was the word two, he would use the number two, or instead of I, it would be a picture of an eye.
He literally drew an eyeball with an eye.
I
Yeah, an eye.
right.
So, and that's interesting too, because I knew that he did that in his lyrics, like would
Mhm.
just use a U for YOU
Right.
or an R for UR, and then the eyes. I didn't realize he just did that on a daily basis.
Right.
I
Yeah.
figured that was just a fun thing he was doing for the album cover, for the sleeves with the lyrics in them.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's such that never really gets explained.
Yeah, you wonder, was it a spelling thing or he just like decided he was going to kind of have his own hieroglyphics? He seemed a little obsessed with the whole Egyptian thing.
Yeah. Doing his own thing. Yeah.
Mhm.
Uh, let's see. Yeah, and then she was in the New Power Generation. She played the guitar. uh, I at that time I kind of fell away from him, so I wasn't really listening to that much of him at that time. Uh,
Yeah, in the 90s, I wasn't listening to as much either. But then by that time, by like the mid 90s, I had little kids. So,
mm.
what I was listening to? Milan and
Oh,
Toy
right.
Story on the television over and over again every day. And, Disney movies. That's what I was listening to. I wasn't doing grown-up stuff anymore then. So I didn't know the most of the songs that she was referencing. I went and watched a couple of the videos just to see.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Me too. And I liked it. So yeah, I'll have to go back and listen to some more of it. But yeah, like I knew Diamonds and Pearls, but that might have been just before he changed over.
Yeah, I remember hearing about them and
Yeah,
maybe seeing a couple of videos, pass here and there on MTV or VH1 or whichever one was left. I don't know.
yeah.
But
Um,
it wasn't quite the same. It wasn't that kind of funky dance music anymore. It was a little more experimental, I think.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's a good way of putting it. Yeah, it was experimental. Yeah, yeah, because that's just the way he was always evolving. So that's yeah,
Yeah.
which could be a good thing. So yeah. Uh, yeah, Dell's not here, but yeah, that was when in the 90s. That's when I would listen to rock. I was listening to rock music, and then grunge came along, so so that kind of fell away from that. So the 90s is when I started listening to country music instead. So I went to the country
To
phase.
get away from grunge.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, that never turned me on that much. And I was kind of pissed that it was taking over from what used to be, all those cool synth uh
yeah,
bands of the 80s and the late 80s. Um, so I don't know. It wasn't hooking me quite anymore, but it's just, I was moving on too. We all evolve.
right. Yep, yep. So let me see what else do I got here. And then they got. Oh, he asked. Oh, this was another cool thing too. He asked her to marry him on July 25th, 1995, and then the first time when she at first saw him at the concert, it was on July 25th, 1990. So it was like to the day that
That is neat.
proposed to her. Yeah,
That
And,
is neat.
yeah. And then they got married on Valentine's Day in '96. That was my parents' anniversary too. Was the Valentine's Day.
Nice.
Yeah. And then, and then she said that they had shows. Was it in Vegas? They had shows from February 16th to the 18th. So they just got married, and then they're still doing shows.
Just like went back to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But when you're doing something that cool, I don't know that I would have minded either to
Right. Yeah.
do another show.
Yes, I'll
It's what
go
you're
into
kind
the
of
office.
born to do.
Yeah. Uh, and then yeah, then she talked a bit about Prince's father because Prince was kind of estranged from him, and then she
Oh
tried
yeah,
to
that was
get them
sad.
connected again. And
Yeah, and that was kind of reflected in Purple Rain, which, like, I don't know that I've ever seen all the way through. I've seen bits and pieces of it and not necessarily in sequence. But I remember thinking it was strange to see him in that situation where he was kind of depicting himself almost as a child, you know,
yeah,
caught between his parents abusing each other or his father being abusive, let's say.
yeah,
So just, and I guess, I was young at the time, so, and I didn't feel like a child. But to see somebody who I looked up to as being older than me and very successful in that situation, it was very strange.
yeah,
Like, I don't know, I guess I could relate to a certain degree, but I don't know that I really wanted to picture him that way. And it's kind of sad that that's what he grew up with. I mean, that's sad, sad for anybody to have to be in the middle of that.
yeah. Oh yeah, it's funny you say that because the character his character's name and that was the kid. So
Yeah, that's right. It's true. So,
uh, yeah, so they did like get together one time. It didn't seem to go bad, but then after he left, that was the last time they saw each other before his father died. So yeah,
oh yeah. Yeah, she did. She made an effort to get them together and it seemed to go well, but then the father just never followed up anymore. I don't know. That's shitty.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Excuse my French.
I'll say,
That's just shitty.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
shitty of a dad to do. I,
Mhm.
I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. So sad. And then and then yeah, I tried to get Mayte out here, but I never.
Ah,
I don't know if she ever saw my message. Yeah, it's tough to. I can't find anybody's. A lot of celebrities they don't have email addresses because who really uses email that much these days. So I tried
yeah,
messaging
well,
her in Instagram, but who knows? It's probably like in a spam folder or something. But I would have liked to talk to her because
yeah, that or it goes to an agent and they blow it off or something like that, or
right,
who knows.
yeah, yeah. But the thing that really struck home with me was about losing babies. So because I've been through that myself.
Yeah.
So and for her to open up,
Oh God, I'm sorry.
so that was really
Ah,
yeah. I still
yeah, that
struggle with
was
that.
difficult
So
to read.
mm, yeah, uh, yeah. That for me it was in 2009, and I still struggle really bad with it.
Oh God.
And to read that, and then she went into the details and everything. So I know how difficult that was for her to do. So I really wanted to talk to her about that, and it was actually a little bit healing for me to read about that. But she actually gave birth, so it was like a little bit further because we when I was married, we lost two babies, and she gave
Oh,
had
I'm so sorry. That's so terrible.
yeah, yeah, thank you. And yeah, so she gave birth, and the baby had all kinds of problems. It has so many operations, and then they
I
finally.
tried to look up some of the things she said, some of the syndromes she said that the baby had, and
Mm,
they really did sound horrifying to have to watch your
horrifying.
child suffer
Mm,
through. And she made a reference to Prince's face when he first saw the baby, and that it was just a look of horror, like he didn't know what was
Hmm.
going on, I mean, that's got to compound things that much more. So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. She basically had PTSD from that. I mean, yeah, it's well, you you have kids, so you know, like when as soon as you're pregnant, you have that attachment, and yeah, and then just to lose a child like that, it's
absolutely. Well,
traumatizing.
I can't really say I have not been through that. I'm not on wood that everything went the way it was supposed to go. But it's true as a mother, you have to, you have at least that feeling of you're responsible no matter what happens, even if it's something that has nothing to do with anything you could have done or stopped, or it doesn't matter.
Mhm.
You still feel like you're the parent. You're put on earth to protect this child no matter what. And when you're put in a circumstance where you can't, it's just got to be devastating.
Yeah, yeah, and she really did everything she could. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, she did, and she was put in a position like there was talk of, once again, they very much uh they held true to this, it's all in God's hands. God will work it out. God will protect the baby. And after a while, there were too many doctors telling them, no, there's too much that's wrong. And she realized that she was in danger also. And I think that's with her, she was able to step back and say, all right, no, I'm not just in God's hands. I have to be in the doctor's hands or I might die.
mhm.
And she had to break with what he wanted. And when there's somebody as forceful as he was and as set in his beliefs as he was, that had to be really difficult too, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, yeah.
But she was at least able to do that and save herself and go on. But I'll tell you, to go through something like that, I mean, that's got to be a challenge for any couple, no
Mhm.
less this sensitive musical genius, who gets everything he wants, and a staff of people running around doing everything that he wants them to do all day long. That's hard for anybody, not just like people who are as crazy isolated, and you get into a headspace where everything's going to go the way you want it to go, because
Yeah.
you can snap your fingers and do anything. But that was a real challenge. It would be a challenge for anybody, not just a famous couple. So
Mhm.
it's sad that they had to go through that. Maybe the marriage would have been completely different if they hadn't had to go through that.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, like yeah, that's I can like I said, I could definitely relate. So
Yeah,
yeah, and she even said that they like pretended to be all right. They just kept trudging forward. So you're just like out of your own body. It's really really tough. And then I think at one point she even tried to take her own life, and but then the her dog, I guess was that the one that was her
yeah,
mother's dog, and then she then the mother gave to her, and then she was gonna take pills, and then the dog was scratching her leg, and then stopped her from doing it, and now
that's
she
amazing, huh?
yeah yeah dogs are incredible, and so now she's very heavy into with what do you call it with the dogs
Right. She does animal rescue now,
yeah
right? That's her
yeah yeah.
charity.
Yeah, yeah, she's very big into that. That's like that's probably her main. I think she teaches dance too, but I think her main thing is adoption and animal rescue, and it goes back to that. So yeah, so that was
Yeah, it's kind of incredible. Uh, I have to say, she described her. I mean, that people always say, all right, there's got to be a ghostwriter, etc. All these people have ghostwriters, and that's probably true. But having read a bunch of these memoirs, they all do sound different. So
yeah.
even if there are people who are helping them write, it's sounding to me like their personalities are coming through, and
Mhm.
their reality is really kind of part of the story. It's not just somebody typing this up and you know editing them for, whatever they need to edit. So I have to say, I liked the book. I liked the story that she told. I liked the way that she told it.
Mhm.
I think it was unique enough that even if there was somebody, helping her with it, that it sounds like a unique story to this woman. And I really felt for her. She was through a lot, despite the fact that in a way she had a very charmed life, and in another way she had a very difficult life with the things that she went through that we just described. So
Yeah.
I wish she would have come on.
Yeah.
I read a lot of these memoirs and feel like, wow, I wish I could shake her hand and say, good job, and you've been through a lot, and
Yeah.
thanks for sharing that with us.
Yeah, exactly. That's mainly why I want to like thank her for doing this. Yeah, being so vulnerable and open, and yeah, it was a mix of everything. It
Yeah,
was a lot of really bad stuff, but then just seeing her process of growing up and how successful she was a lot of really good too. Even the courtship, even you were like caught up in that too. So the way she wrote about that, yeah.
sure. Yeah,
Um, let's see. Then yeah, she talks about her sister Jan her her sister is gay, and then her mother is very Catholic, and she wasn't happy at first, and then Mayte kind of went off on her mother, especially because this was
yeah,
after she lost then she had another miscarriage, so it was after she lost the babies, then the mother basically wants to disown the daughter for being gay, and then that just set Mayte
yeah.
off.
No, no way you're doing that, right?
Yeah, yeah. And then she was on. Then she went off on the grandmother because of the way she treated her mother, and
Right. So the thing is, she kind of comes off, in writing the book, she kind of comes off as being maybe a little demure and calm and in control, but she, whenever she needed to step up and stand up for herself,
yeah.
she really did. And there were a lot of strong people in her life.
Mm,
So I think it's nice that she could be both, number one, because I believe that she was that kind of, you know, mystical and soft and flexible person who kind of went with all these cool things that happened to her. But when she needed to put her foot down, she did,
yeah,
and she did that even as a child. So that's a pretty strong position to come from.
yeah.
And maybe if you're a rock star, that's the person that you need in your life. You know,
You're right. Yeah,
somebody can just say no,
yeah,
sorry.
yeah. Because at first, before they were married, she wasn't getting paid or anything, and she was staying with him. And then she had a lot of money before, but then she was running out of it because she wasn't getting paid, and then she was going to leave
Right.
Prince, and and then he didn't know what was going on. He didn't know really that much of the business aspect. He's like kind of shocked that she was going to leave.
Yeah.
That she wasn't. That he ended up and to he ended up stepping up and straightening it all out because it wasn't
Yeah. And
just her that was getting
giving
screwed
her a
over.
giving
Yeah.
her a salary. And even when they got divorced, it seemed like maybe that was the one area where she was like, I'm not going to touch this. And she
Mhm.
seemed to leave that relationship with less than she came in with,
Yeah.
financially, at least. And she found her way through it, but it sounded like she had a hard time with that. Like maybe personally she's able to go up against him, but thinking about it legally, maybe that was a lot less, she was a lot less confident about that.
Mhm.
And that's kind of sad that she had to go through that after all the years that she spent with him. And this was, she described him as her first boyfriend, you know?
Right. Yeah.
And
Yeah. That's true. Yeah. Yeah.
that's, it's just a bizarre situation, a bizarre position to be in,
Yeah.
where that's your one and only boyfriend is Prince, is like this wealthy, famous, genius musician. So,
Yeah. 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 I mean, it sounds like she's like spoke up to him and everything too. Like she sees a video of him with like this stripper that he's all over in one of the videos.
yeah,
And then there was somebody else that was then the roles were reversed, and there was like this other girl that came in that was working for him, and then that's when she kind of was getting pushed out, and
Yeah, she knew it was
then
coming.
yeah, yeah. Um, and then yeah, and then they got divorced. Yeah, so it was interesting to see how the relationship formed and everything, and then see it uncoupling.
Yeah, it's a shame. I don't know that. Like I said, I was surprised that he to find out that he was married to begin with. It
Yeah.
wasn't like way publicized. Uh, but to think that somebody like that would be in a relationship long term forever, I think is hard. I'd be hard pressed to believe that that could ever happen.
Mm.
So it's not that surprising that, as much as they really seemed crazy about each other at different points in the book, it's not that surprising to me that that didn't work out. And the second wife got divorced too before too
Yeah.
long. So, you know, it's not a real stable place to live in, you know.
Yeah. Mhm.
So, but I thought it was really funny when she would describe, first of all, she ended up like selling his clothes because he left a bunch in the house. And like that was the only thing she had was the house.
Right.
But there was stuff of his in it, and of course that's very valuable because he's this amazing guy. So she started selling his clothes, and then finally heard from him after years and years of never, him never reaching out. But I thought it was really wild the way she said that. She would go out and buy clothes, and he would steal them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And he would have his wardrobe, not just steal them and wear them, have his wardrobe department take them, alter them to fit him instead of her,
Right.
because she was taller than him. So he'd
Yeah.
take them up and he'd put shoulder pads in, and then like he'd take her outfits and wear them and alter them. That I thought was funny. And
Yeah.
finally, I was looking as we're going along. I'm like, why doesn't she have pictures in this book? You'd think there'd be a bunch of pictures.
Hmm.
Finally hit them at the end, at least
Yeah.
at the
Yeah.
ebook.
Yeah.
Finally hit them at the end. So that was kind of cool. And she's like, here he is in my shirt.
Yeah. 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 That was great.
Here's this is my jumpsuit.
Yeah, she has such a humor about it. Yeah, that
Yeah,
was something different with this book because a lot of times the pictures are, if they're not throughout the book, there's usually like a section right in the middle of
right
it.
in the middle or
Yeah.
two. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was like, she's not showing us any pictures. What's with that?
So yeah, I really enjoyed this one so much. I
I
I
did
know
too.
at least every memoir we've done so far, I've really enjoyed. So yeah,
I have been so surprised by how much I like them.
yeah, yeah,
I'll be honest, I came from a writing program, we're writers, we're supposed to be, more highbrow than this, but I have really liked just about every one of them. I've really liked. Some I've been more involved in than others, but
yeah,
I loved this one. I really did. And once again, it ended so sad because despite the fact that she'd been divorced, he'd been married and divorced already since then. But I mean, this was still like the main person in your life, the main influence in your life.
yeah,
And her describing having to then deal with the fact that he was gone, it's just really just ripped your heart out, you know?
yeah, yeah. Uh, oh, should also mention that she adopted a girl too. So yeah,
I'm happy for her.
yeah, yeah. So I
I'm
mean,
really happy for her.
she didn't mention a guy, so I think she might be a single mom.
I think so. From what I've said, like I watched a couple of videos where she was still kind of saying, where is he?"
Yeah.
But who knows? But she was with Tommy Lee too. We touched on that in the beginning.
Oh, that's
For
right.
a while, she was dating Tommy Lee too. So it's not like she's just had nobody
Oh
since
yeah,
then.
yeah.
She's had
Chris
her
got
own.
jealous. Yeah. Yeah. I forgot about that. Yeah.
Interesting.
Uh, well, well, let's see if she returns my message.
Yeah, well, tell her I said hi. We can do a part two if she wants to come back on. Seriously.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I,
No, I
I
thought
mean,
she was great. I really did. I
yeah,
thought she
yeah.
did a great job with this.
Yeah, if I'm able to get in touch with her, I would definitely have her like on the Gen X Journeys podcast as well because she has a great story and it'd be great to
Yeah,
hear
absolutely.
her on. Yeah, but yeah, I was really happy to. It was a really good read, pretty fast. Yeah, I think I finished this a couple of weeks ago. So
I did. I finished it really quick too because you know what? I really wanted to continue reading it.
yeah,
It didn't just sit there like, oh, I gotta finish this. No, as I read it, I felt really good. She just has this way of making you feel really kind of zen and calm and like everything's gonna work out and like, isn't this a great life? And everything's beautiful. And it was a nice experience just to sit and read the book. So,
yeah,
and that's not that easy to do.
yeah, yep,
Doesn't just happen.
yeah, yep, yep. That's for sure. So incredible. All right, that'll bring us to our next book for this month. It We decided on The Perks of Being a Wallflower, which I haven't read. I haven't seen the movie. Stephen, oh, I can't. Chomsky,
I I
Chosky.
think so. I don't know if I've heard it pronounced. Yeah, I think it's Chopsky. Let's see.
But yeah, it's a coming of age novel, and I believe it takes, yeah, it's set in the early 1990s. So yeah,
Can't look
that.
anything up. My keyboard is freaking out. I told you. Right now it's like 17 R's all the way across.
But the perks of being a wallflower.
P-E-R-R-R-R. That's the thing.
Wallflower.
We got to P-E-R. That's it. Oh, sorry.
But yeah, yeah. So this seems like I always love coming of age stories and everything. And I was always curious about it. I just haven't had a chance to read it or see the movie yet. So I'm
I'll
interested in that.
reread it. When it first came out, I remember hearing a buzz. So
Yeah.
I read it. And once again, it takes place in Pittsburgh, where I went to college. Uh, when I did see the movie at the time, I remember you can see the one of the main buildings of the college out a window in one of the scenes. I was like,
Oh. So they filmed on location. Yeah.
yeah, and people that I knew from college knew those locations. That was like their local movie theater they were in and that
Oh,
kind of
okay.
thing. So a
Oh,
little
that's
bit of
very
a
cool.
connection.
Yeah,
Hmm.
so I'm looking forward to that. Yeah, I think it was published in '99. Yeah, it takes place in the '90s. So yeah,
Okay.
it's always cool to, go back to your childhood and stuff. So yeah, I'm just very interested in this. This should be a good fiction month. It seems like I don't think it's that long. I forgot how many pages I said it was, maybe 224 or something. It's
Okay. I may have to download it because I think I loaned it to somebody and never got it back. Like when I read a book and I like it, like I usually will like have to give it to somebody else to
right.
share the experience, but it doesn't always come back. So
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
it doesn't
yeah.
always, it makes the rounds. They send it to somebody else. So we share.
Yeah, I'm either gonna have to buy it or get it downloaded because I went on the library app with the Libby and it was a 22-week waiting list. There's like 10
Oh
people.
wow.
I think it said it was 10
Wow.
people have it on hold already. So it's like, oh, I'm not gonna get.
Jeez. Nice.
I was trying to go to the library first, but yeah, I like having the physical copy because then I make notes and everything. Yeah.
Okay. I can see that.
Yeah, but I also I like to listen to it too, so I kind of follow along sometimes too. So yeah, that's what I did with Mayte's book. So yeah, so we'll see. So
Okay.
all right, you want to tell people how they can reach you?
Oh yeah. SuzanneMattaboni.com. I also I'm the author of Once in a Lifetime, which is a coming of age women's fiction that takes place in the 1980s. So there's a once in a lifetime novel.com site also. And then I'm Suzanne Mattaboni 80s or Suzanne Mattaboni book at on either Twitter or TikTok or Facebook is easy enough. Suzanne Greco Mattaboni. So yeah, you can see me on any of those and maybe take a look once in a lifetime.
Awesome. Oh, maybe I should try to get the author of Perks of Being a Wallflower on and see if you
Oh,
guys have a collaboration, do a crossover with your characters.
wow, that'd be cool. That'd be cool. That'd be great if you could come on. Let's talk.
Yeah.
think he's got some new projects in the works.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So looking forward. And so then you can find me at Gen X Journeys on all the social medias. And I actually started getting more into the TikTok, and that's blowing up all of a sudden because there's a huge Gen X community on there. So I'm
Cool.
loving that. So yeah, the website's genxjourneys.net. And then if you have any suggestions of books that you'd like us to cover, you can email me at paul@genxjourneys.net. And yeah, and then you can also check out Dell's radio show at 80s at 8 on Saturdays and Sundays at 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. And it's on the WEDM app. So, yeah, and he has an awesome show, as I always mention. So you can go and check that out. And I don't know if he's like on vacation from that or not. I don't know if they do some kind of spring break because it's at a school, like a school that he does that at. So yeah, yeah, definitely check that out. And that's all for this month. So we look forward to seeing you next month. And thank you all so much for watching and listening. And we'll see you next time. Thank you.